So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Galaxy Note 10 Plus 2 years later. So this phone launched way back on August 7, 2019. So the year before the pandemic, this one was the hottest Note device that did come out. Then we had the Note 20 Ultra that came a year after. And now it doesn't look like we're seeing a Note this year right now. So the Note 10 Plus, let's talk about it here if you should buy it 2 years later. Now, my first impressions on the body and the build were great for this phone, mostly because it just has a very premium and thin build. Now, on the back of the Galaxy Note, I will say it's always got a lot of fingerprints, especially on this interstellar glow looking color that I decided to go with. But I will say that at a 6.8 inch screen size, this is a massive screen right here. So if you do like large displays, you'll really love this one right here. In terms of the actual weight of it, 196 grams. So this is not actually super heavy. It's got some weight. It still feels premium, but it's not pushing over 220 grams or so. It's not as heavy as a Fold. It's not as heavy as a 12 Pro Max. It's not as even heavy as I think the Note 20 Ultra. So it's definitely pretty good size and pretty good weight here for this phone. I will say that Gorilla Glass on the front and the rear at Gorilla Glass 6 gives it more of a sturdy feel. And then over here on the edges, you do have this aluminum frame that does wrap around very nicely. You can see right there. And it does hold up very well. It's very thin, and that's mostly because this does have a curved panel. I will say though that you aren't going to get, the most rugged design here. You definitely want to put this in a rugged case if you're going out and being, rugged with the phone. It's definitely have a full sheet of glass on the rear and then a full sheet of glass on the front. So this can crack if you don't, protect it well if you're out and about doing stuff. So overall, the body and the build 2 years later, very strong. All right, so what about the display quality? Well, one of my favorite things about this panel is that it has a very high resolution at 3040 by 1440. So this is a 2K display, WQHD plus to be exact, but there's no 120 hertz on here. But however, you do have 498 pixels per inch. So that means that the display is incredibly sharp. It is on a 60 hertz panel though, so it doesn't look quite as smooth as the transitions you'll find on some of the newer Samsung phones or the one that came after this, which was the Note 20 Ultra. So that doesn't mean it looks slow or anything. It just means that these transitions when going through stuff just don't look quite as snappy as you'll see, or quite as smooth as you'll see on some of the phones that came after this. Other than that though, you have a 91% screen to body ratio. So 2 years later, there's still phones that don't look this good. So really, this is a strong panel, regardless of the fact that it's getting a little bit up there in age, a couple years old now. But still, if we take a look, the panel is super enjoyable. What more do you need out of a display? If you are watching YouTube videos, let's take it over to YouTube. We'll go to Explore tab. We'll go to Trending here. You're going to be able to watch all your favorite YouTube videos very easily. And look at that. Yeah, you see a little bit of chop. It's not chop, but it's not as smooth as butter like you'll see on the 120 hertz, but that doesn't mean it's slow. It's still very quick in the display operation. It's just that 60 hertz doesn't match up to 120 hertz, but other than that, very bright. And also with the adaptive brightness, this thing can reach peak brightnesses that you won't find on a lot of other phones. So what that means is when you're outdoors and you turn this on, it can get super bright so you can see it in the sunlight as well. So very strong panel. The punch hole is a little bit bigger than some of the newer S21 Note 20 Ultra line, but overall still really do like it. If you're not into curves though, you won't like this panel. If you like more of a flat display, you might want to take a look at the regular Note 20. So when talking about software, of course, this is the Galaxy Note line, so you do get the beautiful S Pen that does give you all the features, and it tucks neatly into the phone itself. So you'd have Write on Calendar, Pen Up, Live Message, Screen Write, Smart Select, and more. But other than that, it is the loaded Samsung suite of features, and it did get some more features with some updates that came. Like if we go over here into the camera and we go to more, they did bring Pro Video to this phone. So if you see right here, there is a Pro Video setting for this device, allowing you to tweak the video even more. This came after the S21 Ultra came out, so definitely some nice feature set there. We'll talk more about the camera later, but if we go into the settings menu itself, let's go back up in there. You'll see if we go down to advanced features, you are loaded with the feature set, and unlike the other S line phones, you do have S Pen features because of course it comes with the S Pen, including AirView. You can show the pointer when hovering and stuff like that. So lots going on, and the inclusion of the S Pen makes this even more feature packed than the S line. So also, when we go over here, we can go to the theme store. This phone doesn't really need a launcher because you can theme it out with all these Samsung themes, icons, always on display modes, even that. So the theming is like endless on this device. And then in addition to that, if we go to settings here, you can change your own grids here. There's a lot you can do right within the One UI feature set. So really do like it overall. I think the software is strong, and 2 years later, the S Pen, still a really nice feature on here with having all of the updated features that you basically want from Samsung. It still feels very modern. It doesn't feel much different from using a Note 20 Ultra, to be quite honest with you. So this phone doesn't really have any major lag. It did come with the Snapdragon 855 CPU, which is 7nm chip. So there's not really any delay when it comes to the performance. It actually runs everything very smooth. I will say the 888 is a bit quicker on the newer Samsung devices, but again, there's not anything that's going to slow you down in your day-to-day with this phone right here. In addition to that, not only that, it came with 12 gigs of RAM. Some of the newer Samsung phones have went down to 8 gigs, or you like to bring the pop views and split screens and stuff like this, where you kind of bring it down and then you're doing something over here, like you're doing a quick calculation while you're doing something in the internet. Maybe you want to bring that one down as well. Let's go ahead and bring it down. And you want to put these applications like this, and then go ahead and open up the camera and then move these around. I mean, anything you're doing on here, it doesn't really slow down. There's really no lag with this phone. So 2 years later, with the storage and the RAM with this phone, again, we talked about the 12 gigs of RAM, but if we go into settings here and we go to battery and device care, we'll go to storage. This one does have the ability to expand that memory with an SD card. So that's very nice because some of the newer Samsung phones really can't do that. Now this phone right here does come with 256 gigabytes of storage. So that's another nice touch. You got quite a bit of storage space on here by comparison to some of the newer phones starting out at 126 gigs or 128 gigs. So very nice that it started at 256 gig. This is a premier phone. It was a premier phone. It goes to 512 as well. But I like that. I really like the large amount of storage on this device. So you're not going to have to worry at all about that. You start out at 256 gigs. A great reason to still pick this up 2 years later is the camera. The reason why is because you're talking about a camera that was similar to that of the S10 Plus, and the S10 Plus was one of the best years for Samsung. Now, while this phone doesn't have the farthest zoom at only 10x, that's still very acceptable. It can still zoom in pretty decent. But why I really like this camera, again, it does have a dual 12 megapixel plus a 16 megapixel ultra wide right here. If we go to the ultra wide, that's at 16 megapixel. It's got a nice field of view as well on that ultra wide. But what I really like about this phone is that not only does it have the video modes that you'll want, like up to 4K 60, that's good enough, super steady. But this phone has really good focus. Like, it doesn't really miss on the focus, which is very important for, a phone like this where you just want to pull it out and snap a picture. It pretty much nails it every time, and it produces a nice saturation with a nice amount of detail on the photos. So I will say that if you're looking for a good camera, don't sweat it. This one is still very good. It does have a front-facing camera of 10 megapixels, and this really hasn't changed much, even on Note 20 Ultra. Some of them have been updated, but this is not a problem. This one is pretty decent. It does 4K 60 on the front video as well. So this one, again, is loaded. Like, look at that, 4K 60 on the front. How much more do you want here? And if we go to the more modes, again, look at all the pro features in here. Look at all the stuff you can do. I mean, this phone, man, it's loaded. I really love this phone because it just has so much features, and now you can get it at such a lower price than when it first came out. This is in the $400 range. This thing launched at over $1,100. Like, how could you pass this deal up right here? This is a great deal right now. All right, guys. So what about the battery life now? If you're looking for, a great battery life, this one doesn't give you that. That's one of the areas where I was like, this phone is just okay. 4,300 milliamp hour battery means that this phone makes it through a day, but it doesn't really impress. The 5,000 milliamp hour batteries on the newer S20 Ultra and the S21 Ultra, those phones are a little bit more impressive than this 4300. Now this 4300, don't get me wrong, it's gonna go the day, but if you're using GPS in your car, you need to plug it in. If you're gonna be using camera with the 4K video a lot, you're gonna drain the battery. And this phone never had the best standby time. So 2 years later, I can't say I'm super impressed with the battery life, but I'm not disappointed either. It can get a solid day's worth of battery life with a solid amount of screen on time. I was looking at around 6 to 7 hours with this one, so that's not bad. But keep in mind, I did have the brightness lower. I had the Wi-Fi on when I was getting them type of screen on times. With 4G and stuff like that, it could be a bit less. Keep in mind too that this does have 45 watt fast charging. Some Samsung phones don't even have that still. 45 watt fast charging support right here. So this is one of the fastest charging Samsung phones you can buy on the market. Of course, you're going to need that brick that can do that. And this does have fast wireless charging and fast charging. So charging it is a joy. There's no issues there. But the battery life, not overly impressive. 2 years later, if you're looking to buy this phone, keep in mind, you may want to consider something else if you're looking for the longest battery life you can ever get. But you won't be disappointed either. It's kind of it's a good balance, but it's just not overly impressive. So let's talk about audio with this phone.
And welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about...
So we have no issues with this thing getting plenty loud. In addition, you do have the Dolby Atmos features on here for the music, movies, auto mode, as well as the voice mode. However,
the Samsung Galaxy Note 10...
Samsung has improved the clarity and the richness of the audio on the newer phones, but this one is still plenty loud, although I think at the highest volume.
3 months of use. This one's relatively new.
It can get a little scratchy. It's not perfect, so it's not perfect at the highest volume, but still it's very loud. So if you like a loudspeaker on your phone, you don't got to worry here. This one integrates it up here and down here, and it's plenty loud enough. There's no major issues or concerns in the way of audio. Another area where I'm not super concerned is the phone calls. The phone calls and reception strength on here was A1. So is there anything I didn't like? Not much. I didn't like the fact that this phone definitely didn't have 120 hertz. I definitely did not like that. I wish it had it. I think they could have had it at that time, or at least 90 hertz. This thing went with 60 hertz, and I couldn't wait for them to go with a smoother display. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Also, I think, the Note series, for everybody, it's not going to be for everybody with this squared design. It kind of does feel like a big rectangle in your hand. It's not always the most ergonomic and comfortable body. And also the battery life, I was a little disappointed there. I wish it was a bit longer and the standby was better. But other than that, this phone was really a total package. And 2 years later, I'm not really upset with it right now. I don't think it's the best phone that ever launched ever. It's not the best Note that ever launched either, but it's one of the best. But it's still one of the best values you can get right now. If you're looking for a yesteryear flagship and you want it at a cheaper price, you're getting a phone that was once $1,200 for in the $400 range. There's some features on here you won't find even on some FE model Samsung phones. So very neat, and it's mostly the S Pen. This really sets the Note apart. It always has, always will, and hopefully we see more Notes going forward. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click that like button for me. If you have a Note 10 Plus or plan to buy one, let us know your experience and your thoughts and questions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.